There is a heart tonight that feels as though it has slipped beneath the surface of its own strength. A heart that has sunk quietly into depths it did not choose. A heart holding questions too heavy for daylight. Psalm 130 begins exactly there, in the deep places, in the low places, in the quiet ache where a cry rises because it cannot stay inside any longer. The psalm opens not with certainty, but with longing. Out of the depths, I cry to you. It is the voice of someone who has reached the end of their own ability to rise, whose breath feels tight, whose soul feels heavy, whose hope feels dim, and yet, the cry rises, soft, trembling, honest, sent upward into the quiet places where only God hears every unspoken word. Before the story continues, the body is invited to soften into this night. Take a slow, deep breath, letting the chest expand gently, then release it with a long, quiet sigh. Let the shoulders loosen, as though a warm hand rests upon them, easing away the strain of the day. Let the jaw unclench, the brow smooth, the muscles around the eyes soften. Let the hands fall open, resting wherever they feel most at ease. Allow the weight of the body to settle deeply into the bed, like a stone sinking safely into soft sand. Now the heart is invited to slow, to rest, to become quiet enough to hear the whisper of peace that threads gently through the psalm. If these stories bring you peace, take a moment to like this video. Subscribe for more nightly reflections. And share where you're listening from tonight. Your words and presence help keep this space warm and growing. Now, take another slow breath. Let's begin. Night gathers over a landscape shaped by shadowed hills, the sky a deep blue-black dome stretching endlessly above. A single lamp flickers in a distant dwelling, the faint light trembling like the heart of someone crying out from a hidden depth. Inside that small home, a solitary figure sits near a low window, elbows resting on their knees, head lowered, breath slow but unsteady. They are not ashamed of the cry rising in their chest. They simply have no more strength to quiet it. The room is still, lit only by the soft amber glow of a small oil lamp, its flame swaying slightly as though listening. The air warm and hushed, walls holding the faint scent of woven reed mats and cool evening air drifting through the window. The figure lifts their gaze slightly, eyes reflecting the lamplight, and the psalm's opening whisper forms in their breath. Out of the depths, I cry to you, not loud, not forced, but honest, a cry shaped by the weight of waiting, the ache of uncertainty, the depths only God can reach into. Outside the window, the night stretches downward into a narrow valley, shadows pooling like deep water, the kind of depths that swallow sound and make every cry feel small. But in the psalm, the cry is never unheard. It rises, past the shadows, past the hills, past the silence, toward the one who listens with unbroken attention. The story moves closer to the solitary figure, feeling the weight behind their breath, the heaviness gathering behind their ribs, the memory of things that went wrong, the fear of what might not yet be right, the long ache of waiting for mercy that feels delayed. Their fingers curl lightly around the edge of the mat, grounding themselves, anchoring themselves, as though holding to something steady in a room that feels too still. The lamp flickers again, casting soft waves of gold across the walls. The flame bends, straightens, bends again, like a quiet companion echoing the rise and fall of their breath. The valley outside remains dark, but darkness is not absence. It is only a place where eyes cannot yet see what God is doing, where roots grow, where hidden movements begin. The figure lets their eyes close, and their breath settles into a slower rhythm, guided by something deeper than thought, deeper than fear, deeper than understanding. And in that breath, something gentle begins to move, not release, not relief, but presence, a sense that their cry has been heard, even if no answer has formed yet. Their chest rises, falls, rises again, the air inside the room thick with stillness and unspoken prayer. The story turns softly now toward the listening heart. There may be places inside that feel like depths tonight, places where sadness or uncertainty have gathered quietly, places where a cry rises not from weakness, but from honest need, places where the heart longs for God to hear, to notice, to draw near. Let the breath soften again, slow and warm. Let the body sink more deeply into the safety of rest. Let the heart whisper the simple truth carried in the psalm, out of the depths, I cry to you, and the one who hears in hidden places hears even now, tenderly, fully, without turning away. The oil lamp flickers one final time, the valley holds its quiet, and the soul is wrapped gently in the presence of the God who listens in the depths. The night deepens around the small dwelling, the valley settling into an even quieter stillness, as though creation itself is listening to the cry that rose from the depths of one weary heart. The darkness outside grows thicker, not threatening, but heavy with a kind of sacred hush, the kind of hush that comes when sorrow has been spoken honestly before God. Inside the dimly lit room, the solitary figure remains seated near the low window, their posture slightly curved, hands resting loosely on their knees, the gentle flicker of the oil lamp casting soft gold across their face, their breathing steadier now, though still marked with the remnants of ache, a heaviness that has not yet lifted. The psalm speaks to this moment. If you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, who could stand? The weight of that question rests in the air, the sense of being overwhelmed by one's own failings, the fear that the depths might be too deep for rescue, the quiet wondering of whether mercy could truly reach such low places. The figure opens their eyes, staring into the dim glow of the lamp, and in that soft light, every shadow on their face seems to reveal something deeper, something heavy, something long carried. It is the heaviness of regret, of missteps remembered too often, of guilt that clings quietly to the edges of the mind, of choices that still echo through the heart in quieter hours. They inhale shakily, though the breath is quieter now, and the depths they feel are not just sorrow, but also the weight of being human. The night air drifts gently through the open window, cool and faintly scented with earth and stone, a breeze that touches their face like a soft reminder, a reminder that the world outside does not fear the depths. The hills have known deep shadows. The valley has known heavy silence, and yet both remain held in the steady rhythm of God's presence. The figure leans slightly forward, elbows on their knees, fingers interlaced, the posture of someone who does not know what else to do, someone who has come to the end of their own strength, and is now simply waiting in quiet honesty. Their breath catches slightly, not in panic, but in the tender vulnerability of realizing how low the soul has sunk, how far beneath the surface the heart has traveled. But even here, even now, the psalm offers the softest thread of hope. But with you, there is forgiveness. The words rise in the mind of the figure like a small flame rekindled, fragile, trembling, but real. With you, there is forgiveness, not judgment, not distance, not withdrawal, forgiveness, mercy, compassion that reaches down into depths deeper than sorrow, deeper than guilt, deeper than fear. The figure presses a hand against their chest, feeling the slow, steady rhythm of their heart, a heart that has cried from the depths, a heart that feels the weight of its own shadows, a heart that longs for the mercy only God can give. Outside, the valley seems to lean inward, the quiet deepening as though the very earth is waiting for the next breath, the next word, the next movement of grace. The moon, hidden behind clouds, casts no light, yet the darkness itself feels warm, full, as though holding the promise that even the deepest depths are not abandoned. A faint rustle moves through the brush near the dwelling, soft footsteps of a night animal wandering close, unafraid of the quiet sorrow within the home. A small reminder that life continues even in the depths, even in the waiting. The figure's shoulders lower slightly, a soft exhale slipping from between their parted lips. Not relief, but release, a gentle surrender to the truth rising slowly within them, that God hears the cry from the depths, that God does not turn away from the heaviness of the heart, that God's mercy is deeper than any sorrow. The oil lamp flickers again, casting shifting shadows across the walls, shadows that look less like burdens, and more like gentle movement, the slow dance of light reminding the figure that even in darkness, something tender is at work. Their eyes soften, their breath steadies, the ache in their chest loosens just enough for rest to enter, and the story leans gently toward the listening heart. There may be depths within tonight, depths of regret, depths of exhaustion, depths of fear or doubt, depths where the soul feels small or unseen, but the psalm holds this gentle truth. With God, there is forgiveness. With God, there is mercy. With God, there is no depth too deep for love to reach. Let the breath soften. Let the shoulders lower. Let the body sink deeper into rest. Let the heart feel the first quiet hints of hope rising through the dark. The depths are not the end. They are simply the place where God begins his tender work. The night deepens into a softer darkness, not the sharp kind that isolates, but the quiet kind that gathers gently around the soul, holding it, sheltering it, giving space for breath to slow, for the heart to speak honestly, for the psalm's whisper to echo through the hidden places. Inside the small room, the solitary figure remains near the low window, the oil lamp flickering at their side, casting warm gold across their shoulders. The shadows around them no longer feel threatening, they feel tender, as though they are protecting the cry that rose earlier from the depths. Their breath steadies further, not because the heaviness has disappeared, but because something gentle has begun to stir beneath it. A whisper, barely formed, barely audible, yet unmistakably real. A whisper rising in the quiet, a reaching toward God, a soft plea carried in the stillness. Lord, hear my voice. Not shouted, not forced, simply breathed, exhaled like a fragile truth rising from deep water. The figure lifts their face slightly, eyes half open, and the night outside looks less like a vast emptiness, and more like a wide, waiting space. The valley lies in its soft dark, hills forming quiet silhouettes against the sky, the faint breeze carrying the scent of distant stone and cool earth. It is into this waiting silence that their whisper rises, unrushed, unadorned, unhidden. Lord, hear my voice. The psalm does not hide the vulnerability of this plea. It does not pretend the depths are comfortable. It simply offers the truth that even the faintest cry is heard, even the smallest whisper reaches the heart of God. The figure breathes again, a slow, trembling inhale, their fingers lightly brushing the woven mat beneath them, grounding themselves, anchoring themselves in this moment of raw honesty. Something begins to soften in their chest, not fully, not completely, but enough to let breath flow more gently. They close their eyes, and behind their eyelids, the darkness feels different, warmer, steadier, a quiet reminder that God meets his children in low places, not waiting for them to rise first, but leaning down into the depths with compassion. Outside, a faint sound drifts through the air, the low rustle of wind moving across the valley, soft leaves shifting, gentle movement in the brush. The world itself seems to be whispering with them, echoing their plea, carrying it upward, as if creation knows how to pray alongside those who struggle to lift their own heads. A distant lantern flickers in a neighboring home, a tiny, trembling light, and the figure's eyes drift toward it. Their hearts stirred by a quiet realization. They are not alone in the night, not alone in the depths, not alone in the longing for God to hear. Others, unseen, have cried the same cry, felt the same heaviness, waited in the same darkness, and God heard them. Just as he is hearing now, the figure exhales slowly, and in that breath is something softer, something freer, something aching but hopeful. Lord, let your ears be attentive to the voice of my plea. The words are not spoken aloud, but the heart speaks them clearly, and the night receives them gently. The oil lamp's flame bends and rises, casting its warm glow on the figure's face, illuminating a softness that was not there before. It is the softness that comes not from answers, but from surrender, from honesty, from the courage to whisper into the depth, and in that whisper, the first threads of connection form, thin, delicate, yet strong enough to hold the heart in this tender moment. The story leans now toward the listening heart. Perhaps there are whispers within tonight, whispers too soft for others to hear, whispers shaped by longing, by need, by questions that rise from deep places. These whispers are prayers, even the wordless ones, even the trembling ones, even the ones that feel too small to matter. Let the breath soften again, allow the chest to rise gently, let the body sink deeper into rest. Whisper if you need to, in your heart, in your breath, in the quiet moments between thoughts. Lord, hear my voice. And know, in the tender truth of this psalm, he does, he always does. He hears the cries that rise from the deepest places. The night holds its gentle quiet, and the heart is held with it. The night settles into an even deeper stillness, a stillness so soft, so complete, it feels like the very air is holding the solitary whisper that rose moments ago. Lord, hear my voice. The quiet inside the small room grows thick and warm, the lamplight flickering slowly, casting gentle ribbons of gold across the woven mats, painting soft shadows along the walls like strokes of comfort. The figure remains near the low window, hands resting in their lap, breath slow and hesitant, as though the heart is learning to breathe again after a long time beneath the surface. Their eyes drift toward the darkness beyond the window, not searching, but waiting, the kind of waiting the psalm knows well. My soul waits for the Lord. It is not a rushed waiting, not a desperate grasping, but a quiet, trembling hope that rises from the depths, that leans into the silence, that trusts God to move even when the night is still. The figure draws in a long, deep breath, the kind that feels like a question and a prayer at the same time. Their shoulders rise slightly, then fall, releasing a small weight they didn't know they were still holding. They let their eyes close, only for a moment, and in that darkness behind their eyelids, something shifts, a softening, a gentle widening of the inner space, as though mercy itself has drawn close enough to be felt, not seen, not heard in words, but felt in the warmth slowly gathering in the chest, in the easing of the breath, in the delicate release of tension along the spine. Outside, the valley lies wrapped in its own quiet, a hush so complete it feels ancient, as if generations of prayers have seeped into the earth, whispered by those who waited before, cried out from their own depths, and were met with the same steadfast mercy. A faint breeze moves across the hills, traveling down into the low places, rustling through the grass, and slipping gently through the open window. The breeze brushes the figure's face, cool, tender, like a small reminder that waiting is not emptiness, waiting is presence, waiting is faith stretched softly across the night. The figure's hands uncurl slightly, their fingers no longer gripping one another for strength, but resting loosely, open, as though ready to receive what God may give. Their breathing deepens again, a slow rise, a long fall, each breath smoothing the edges of fear, each exhale loosening the knots beneath the ribs. They open their eyes again, and the world seems a little gentler, not because the depths have vanished, but because the heart has found a way to rest within them. The lamp flame steadies, flickering less, burning in small, calm pulses, mirroring the rhythm of a soul learning to wait. There is a kind of holiness in this waiting, a stillness that carries its own quiet strength. The strength of someone who has cried out, and now sits in soft expectation, listening for mercy, trusting God to move in ways unseen and unhurried. The valley outside holds no sign of dawn, no hint of rising light, but even in this deep night, the figure senses something tender taking shape, a trust forming in silence, a hope rising quietly through the depths, a peace that whispers, "I am not alone in this waiting." The story leans now toward the listening heart. There may be places within that feel suspended in waiting, longing without answers, prayers without clear response, depths that feel unchanged. But waiting is not emptiness. Waiting is its own kind of prayer, its own kind of surrender, its own form of faith. Let the breath soften, slow and deep. Let the shoulders ease further toward the bed. Let the heart rest in the warmth beginning to gather inside. The God who hears the cry from the depths also sits with the soul in the quiet of waiting. You're not alone in this silence, nor in this longing, nor in this depth. Your waiting is held, your breath is heard, and mercy is already drawing near. The night settles even deeper around the small dwelling, not as a heaviness, but as a soft cocoon, a quiet shelter wrapping itself around the solitary heart that waits and breathes and whispers toward God. The room is dim and warm, the lamp beside the figure now burning in a gentler rhythm, its flame swaying in slow, steady arcs, like a heartbeat made visible, like mercy flickering into the room one small glow at a time. The figure remains seated near the low window, back curved slightly, hands resting open upon their knees, eyes lowered, but not in despair, in surrender, in a tired trust that cannot yet see the way forward, but dares to hope anyway. And here, in this quiet moment, a shift begins to form inside them, not a dramatic change, not a sudden breakthrough, but the first tender echo of hope. The psalm whispers this truth through the stillness: "In your word, I put my hope." Not in circumstances, not in certainty, not in strength of their own, but in God's word, God's character, God's compassion. A hope placed not on something fragile, but on someone faithful. The figure lifts their gaze slowly, looking through the open window into the valley's soft, shadowed depths. The darkness outside feels less like a threat now, more like a place where mercy moves unseen, like the quiet underside of hope beginning to form. They inhale, long and slow, their breath carrying the quiet weight of this truth. Hope is not loud, hope does not shout, hope begins as a whisper, a small glow within the chest, a soft echo rising where fear once lived. A faint shiver runs through the tall grass outside, the wind moving gently across the valley, touching stones and soil and rooftops, moving silently through the night like a messenger, carrying comfort to hearts still waiting, and the figure feels it, a subtle warmth inside, the kind that comes only from realizing something sacred, something deeply comforting, something that shifts the entire posture of the soul. God hears them. Not just the cry, but the quiet ache beneath the cry, the longing, the exhaustion, the unseen burdens. Not only is the cry heard, the heart is held. The figure closes their eyes, allowing that truth to settle like a soft blanket across their chest. Their breathing deepens, their shoulders loosen completely, their hands relax into open palms resting gently on the mat. For the first time tonight, the heaviness inside does not feel like sinking, it feels like being carried. The oil lamp flickers toward the walls, light bending and dancing in slow golden arcs, the shadows shifting softly as though bowing to the mercy entering the room. Outside, the valley holds its silence, but it is a different silence now, a tender one, a peaceful one, an expectant one, as though creation senses the first movement of God's reply. The hills remain dark, yet there is warmth beneath their slopes, the kind of warmth that tells of dawn far beyond the horizon, a dawn not yet seen, but certain, steady, coming. The figure lets out a long, trembling breath, not a breath of sorrow, but a breath of relief, a small release of tension, as if the soul itself has eased one step upward from the depths. This is Mercy's quiet work, not removing the night, but filling it with presence, not erasing the depth, but meeting the heart within it. The story leans tenderly toward the listening heart. There may be places within tonight where hope feels faint, where the heart whispers more than it speaks, where longing sits quietly, beneath every breath. But hope does not need to be loud. It does not need to be fully formed. It does not need to be bright enough to see. Hope begins as the gentlest echo, the quietest warmth, the faintest lifting deep within. Hope begins exactly here, in the night, in the quiet, in the depths, in the whispered cry God has already heard. Let the breath fall into a slow, tender rhythm. Let the shoulders sink deeper into rest. Let the heart open gently to the first echoes of hope rising inside. God is near. God is listening. God is moving in ways unseen, even in the depths. Especially in the depths, hope has begun to rise. The night folds itself even more gently around the small dwelling, like soft fabric drawn close, a quiet shelter wrapping the heart in warmth and stillness. The oil lamp glows steadily now, its flame low but unwavering, a silent companion in the deep hours when the soul feels most tender. The solitary figure remains seated near the open window, their posture softened, their shoulders no longer pulled tight, their breath deeper, slower, as though the body has finally remembered how to rest. But inside the chest, the depth remains, not as an emptiness, but as a quiet place where the soul waits, listens, and breathes. The psalm lingers here, in the deep places, the still places, the places where waiting becomes a kind of prayer. My soul waits for the Lord, more than watchmen wait for the morning. The words settle into the room like a soft echo, filling it with an ancient ache, an ancient trust, an ancient longing felt by generations who waited before. The figure inhales gently, their breath brushing the quiet with a sound so soft it blends with the night, and the heart beneath their ribs feels the truth of the psalm in its own slow rhythm. The truth that waiting is not wasted, waiting is not forgotten, waiting is not alone. Waiting itself becomes an offering, a surrender, a quiet lifting of the soul toward God, even when the depths feel deep, even when the night feels long. The valley outside rests in a profound silence, hills dark and patient, the ground cool and still, the distant stream murmuring faintly like a whisper beneath the earth. Nothing in the valley moves quickly, nothing rushes, nothing forces the dawn before its time. Creation waits, the way the heart waits, the way the psalm teaches us to wait, with quiet trust, with softened breath, with expectation that may tremble, but never fully fades. The figure places a hand gently over their heart, fingers resting lightly against the steady rise and fall of breath, feeling each beat like a small reminder that even in the depths, life continues, movement continues, mercy continues to flow unseen. Their eyes drift upward, toward the faint sliver of sky visible through the window, a darkness unbroken by stars tonight, yet still holding the quiet promise of light hidden just beyond the horizon. They breathe in again, slow, warm, steady, and the inhale feels like a prayer, one without words, one spoken entirely through longing. The exhale follows, longer, quieter, as though releasing what the soul is ready to set down. In the valley, a soft wind stirs, barely noticeable, a faint ripple through the grass, a small shift in the air, like a gentle touch brushing along the contours of the land. The figure senses the movement, feels it drift through the open window, a quiet breeze brushing their cheek, carrying the calm of the night into their weary heart. It is a reminder that even in the depths, God's presence moves close, not loudly, but tenderly, not dramatically, but faithfully, with every soft shift, every quiet breath, every gentle moment of rest. The oil lamp flickers a little, its flame bending, then rising, as though responding to the movement of the breeze, its glow spreading in a soft arc across the room, illuminating the figure's face in tender gold. The quiet in the room deepens, not the quiet of absence, but the quiet of companionship, the quiet of a heart no longer alone in its depths, the quiet of God drawing near in the stillness. The story leans closer now to the listening heart. There may be depths inside tonight that feel unmoving, places where waiting feels long, where answers feel distant, where the soul whispers instead of sings. But waiting does not mean forgotten. Waiting does not mean unseen. Waiting does not mean the heart is left to manage the depths alone. God meets you in the waiting. He sits with you in the quiet. He breathes peace into the deepest places. He hears every unspoken longing. He honors every quiet breath that reaches toward him. Let your own breath deepen gently. Let your shoulders soften further. Let the weight of your body sink warmly into rest. You are not lost in the depth. You are held within it. You are accompanied in it. You are gently lifted by the one who never sleeps. Your waiting is seen. Your longing is heard, and the morning is already preparing to rise. The night holds steady, a deep, quiet blanket drawn over the valley, its darkness no longer heavy, but tender, a soft shelter for the heart that waits, for the soul that watches, for the one who whispers into depths that only God can reach. Inside the small dwelling, the solitary figure sits in the same gentle posture, near the open window, hands resting loosely, breath moving with slow, careful ease. The oil lamp beside them glowing like a single star in an otherwise silent world. But something in their stillness has changed, a subtle shift, a quiet strengthening, the way a watcher straightens their back when they decide to keep vigil, not out of fear, but out of trust, a deep trust that the morning will come, that the light will return, that God will not leave the night unanswered. This is the posture of Psalm 130. The posture of the watcher, the one who waits through the dark hours with a steady heart. My soul waits for the Lord, more than watchmen wait for the morning. The figure breathes this truth, inhales it, lets it settle within the chest, lets it shape their quiet vigil. They are not waiting for circumstances to shift, not waiting for emotions to settle, not waiting for the depth to disappear. They are waiting for the Lord, for the warmth of His presence, for the tenderness of His mercy, for the steadying of His hand, waiting like a watcher who knows dawn always comes, even when every horizon looks the same shade of dark. The valley outside stands still in its low hush, hills outlined in soft, muted silhouettes, the faint rustle of a far-off breeze weaving its way downward, carrying coolness, calm, and the quiet promise of the coming light. The figure lifts their gaze, their eyes lingering on the darkness, not in fear, but in expectation, the way one looks toward a horizon that has not yet brightened, but will, without fail. Their fingers rest upon the windowsill, lightly, as though feeling for signs of warmth yet to come. Their breath deepens, their heart steadies, their soul leans forward, toward the God they wait for. In the valley, small movements begin to stir, not light, not dawn, but hints of awakening, subtle shifts in the air, a faint softening in the texture of darkness, the early signs of a world preparing to lift itself toward morning. The solitary figure senses it too, not fully, not clearly, but the way a watcher senses the first gentle change in the sky. They lean back slightly, hands resting open in their lap, each breath syncing with the quiet rhythm of the valley, each exhale releasing a little more. Wait, a little more fear, a little more ache. A watcher is honest about the night, but anchored in the certainty of dawn. And so, their waiting becomes strength, their quiet becomes prayer, their breath becomes a soft vigil, their stillness becomes trust. The oil lamp glows warmly beside them, its flame steady, casting tender gold along the walls, lighting the room not with brightness, but with peace, the kind of peace that watches, and trusts, and believes in light even when surrounded by shadow. The story leans now toward the listening heart. Perhaps there are places within tonight where you wait like a watcher, where the night feels long, where answers have not yet appeared, where the soul leans toward God with quiet breath. You are not failing in the waiting. You are not forgotten in the depth. You are keeping vigil with the God who keeps vigil with you. Wait like the watcher, steady, soft-hearted, eyes open to the horizon, breath calm and slow, trust resting beneath every inhale. You are not waiting alone. The Lord waits with you. The Lord listens with you. The Lord moves toward you even now. Let your breath deepen gently. Let the body grow heavier with rest. Let the heart soften into its quiet vigil. Morning will come, mercy will rise, light will reach even the deepest places. The night stretches long and quiet across the valley, its darkness deep but gentle, its silence soft enough to cradle every breath, every thought, every quiet ache resting within the solitary heart in the small room. The oil lamp still glows beside the figure, casting its warm, amber halo across the woven mat. The light small, steady, a faithful companion through the hours when the soul sits closest to its own depths. The figure remains at the window, posture relaxed, hands resting open, breath moving in slow, even tides. The stillness around them no longer feels empty, but filled with something they cannot yet name, something warm, something near. This is the long night of the spirit, the kind the psalm understands, the kind where breath and prayer become the same quiet movement. The figure inhales softly, and it feels like reaching, not outward, but upward, deep within the hidden places where longing becomes prayer. They exhale, slow and warm, and the release feels like surrender, not resignation, but trust, the quiet letting go that happens when the soul grows tired of struggling alone. Outside the window, the valley rests in its silent posture, the hills unmoving, their silhouettes dark as ink against the starless sky. The grass is still, their delicate forms brushing one another only when the faintest wind slides through. Even the animals of the night have quieted now, their footsteps hushed, their voices stilled, as though the whole landscape has entered its own deep, prayerful breath. The figure watches this stillness, feeling the quiet seep into their bones, steadying them, softening them. They lift one hand to their chest, fingers resting lightly over their heartbeat, and the pulse beneath their palm feels slow, present, real. It reminds them that even in the depths, they are alive, they are held. Their breath continues. Their heart continues. Their hope, though small, continues. Lord, hear my voice. The words echo once more through the inner space of the soul, not spoken aloud, but whispered deep within, woven into breath, woven into longing. This is the place where prayer becomes less about words, and more about presence, less about pleading, and more about simply being with God, in silence, in stillness, in honest need. The valley outside feels this same stillness, this same quiet expectation. A faint rustle begins near the foot of the hill, the soft movement of wind through dry stems, the quiet sigh of the earth shifting in the night, subtle, delicate, like the first breaths of someone beginning to wake. The figure notices, not with their ears, but with their spirit, something has shifted, not dawn, not yet, but the first signs of what dawn will bring, the first feel of mercy moving beneath the surface of the night. Their breathing grows even deeper, their shoulders dropping with each exhale. their hands resting easy on their knees. The long night continues, but it is no longer cold, no longer hollow, no longer a weight pressing downward. It has become a sanctuary, a sacred chamber where the heart can speak, where breath turns into quiet prayer, where waiting becomes worship. The oil lamp burns lower, its soft flame bending gently with each passing breath, casting golden lines across the figure's face, illuminating. The peace beginning to settle there. Outside, the darkness thickens in places and thins in others, like a tide shifting in slow motion, the world preparing, softly, quietly, for the first hint of dawn. The story leans tenderly toward the listening heart. Maybe there is a long night within you too, a place where breath and prayer mix in silence, a place where answers feel far, and God feels near only in the faintest ways. But the psalm promises this: God is in the depths. God is in the longing. God is in the breath that trembles like prayer. God is in the night before the morning. You're not forgotten in the long night. You're not alone in the quiet hours. You're not lost in your depths. Let your breath soften. Let your shoulders sink deeper into rest. Let your heart settle into this sacred stillness. God is here, moving gently, quietly, faithfully, even now, even in the long night. The night lies deep over the valley, a velvet darkness stretched across hills and rooftops, soft, patient, unmoving, yet carrying within it a quiet hum, the barely perceptible vibration of mercy beginning to stir. Inside the small dwelling, the solitary figure remains near the window, bathed in the warm halo of the oil lamp, their breath now steady and slow, their hands resting openly upon their knees, their posture softened into a peaceful kind of waiting. And beneath that quiet waiting, something begins to move, something gentle, something tender, something the psalm speaks of with aching simplicity. Let your ears be attentive to my cry for mercy. Mercy, softening the dark, rising through the quiet like warm air rising through cool night. Not sudden, not loud, but steady, certain, deep. The figure lowers their gaze, eyes half closed, heart leaning forward into the soft glow within the chest. The glow that comes when sorrow has been spoken honestly, and mercy begins its hidden work. They inhale, and the breath feels lighter, as though the weight lying in their chest has loosened by a single thread. They exhale, and the darkness around them seems to breathe in tandem, as though the valley itself is absorbing their release, holding their heaviness with gentle hands. Outside, the valley holds its silence, but it is no longer an empty silence. It carries warmth now, a subtle lifting, a faint brightness beneath the dark soil, like light forming beneath the horizon long before it is seen. A soft rustle drifts through the tall grass at the foot of the hill, barely audible, a whisper of movement, like mercy brushing against creation, touching one blade of grass, then another, until the whole valley feels the shift. The solitary figure feels it too, a quiet stirring inside, the first tremor of hope, the gentle return of breath that no longer trembles. Mercy works this way, not sweeping in with noise, but settling like dew, small drops collecting on the heart, softening, healing, restoring, one quiet moment at a time. The figure lifts a hand to the window frame, their fingers brushing the wood, feeling its coolness, its solidity, its presence against the still night. They lean forward slightly, letting the cool air drift across their face, feeling the night breathe softly against their skin, and in that gentle movement of air, in that delicate brush of wind, there is comfort, unexplainable, unforced, but real. The heart recognizes mercy before the mind does, feels it before it understands it, receives it even when words cannot form. The valley breathes again, a low, slow sigh moving across the land, rustling through unseen leaves, echoing in the quiet spaces between stones, like the soft sigh of someone finally at peace. The figure closes their eyes and lets the night rest around them. Lets the quiet settle into the deepest folds of the soul. Lets mercy slip gently through the cracks, filling them, warming them, lifting them from within. The oil lamp flickers a little, not out of weakness, but in rhythm with the peace entering the room, its flame rising and bending, like a living heartbeat of light. Shadows dance softly on the walls, no longer sharp, but blurred and gentle, like distant memories being softened by grace. The story leans now toward the listening heart. Maybe there are places in you tonight where mercy feels distant, places where heaviness lingers, where breath comes slow, where hope feels thin, where darkness feels too deep. But mercy does not rush, mercy does not shout, mercy does not arrive with force. Mercy comes quietly, like a breeze through an open window, like warmth gathering beneath cold soil, like a soft glow forming beneath the ribcage. Mercy meets the heart exactly where it is, not where it thinks it should be. Let your breath deepen gently. Let your body grow heavier with rest. Let your heart release a little more into the quiet. Mercy is moving toward you. Mercy is softening the dark. Mercy is rising invisibly, steadily, faithfully, even now, in this breath, in this moment, in this night. The night has grown thick and tender around the small dwelling, not suffocating, not cold, but warm in its stillness, like a deep breath held gently in the chest of creation, a sacred hush settling over every hill, every stone, every quiet corner of the valley. Inside the room, the solitary figure remains by the low window, their posture softened, their hands resting open, their breath slow and steady, and though the depths within them are not yet fully lifted, something inside has changed, a small but undeniable shift, like the first faint glow behind the horizon long before dawn appears. Their cry has been heard, their whisper has been received, and in that knowing, the heart begins to loosen, just enough to feel the first threads of hope move through the dark. The psalm speaks into this precise moment, the moment when the heart waits with honest need, a need too deep for words, too tender for explanations, too real to hide. My soul waits, and in His word, I place my hope. The figure breathes those words silently, not reciting, but resting in them, letting them settle into the deepest parts of themselves. Hope here is not a loud proclamation, it is a quiet leaning, a gentle tilting of the heart toward God, like a plant turning toward a distant light, even before the light arrives. Their fingers curl slightly around the window frame, feeling the cool wood beneath their touch, the grounding solidity of it, the way it meets their hand without judgment, without demand, without pressure, and something inside them mirrors that steadiness, a tiny anchor forming, not in their strength, but in God's mercy, a mercy that has already begun to move in the quiet places. Outside, the valley is silent, but not the silence of emptiness, the silence of expectation, the silence of a world holding its breath, waiting for the first thin line of morning. The hills remain dark silhouettes, but somehow their outlines look softer, less heavy, as though the night itself is growing gentler, warmer, more hopeful. A soft breeze rolls across the valley floor, barely touching the grass, barely whispering through the stones, yet carrying something tender with it, a calm so subtle it feels like the breath of God brushing across creation. The figure inhales, and the air entering their lungs feels different, cooler, cleaner, like something has been carried away, like something new is entering. Their exhale is long, slow, almost trembling, but the trembling is not from fear, it is from relief. The kind of quiet relief that comes when the soul realizes it doesn't have to climb out of the depths on its own. Their shoulders lower, their spine softens, their chest opens just a little more, as though the body is finally allowed to rest after holding itself tight for far too long. The oil lamp continues its soft dance, The flame rising, bending, rising again, its glow painting the walls with gentle gold. The shadows swaying like slow-moving tides, a visual reminder that even darkness has movement, even sorrow has flow, even depth has a pathway upward. The figure closes their eyes, and in the darkness behind their eyelids, there is no chaos, no rushing thoughts, no panic, only a quiet space, a warm space, a space held open by God's presence. Their soul leans into that space, not with confidence, but with need, with honesty, with a trembling kind of trust. And this honest need, this gentle surrender, is what the psalm honors. The heart that waits with honest need is the heart God draws closest to. No pretense, no performance, no strength required, just a soul waiting, quietly, tenderly, in the presence of the one who knows every depth. The story leans now toward the listening heart. Maybe there are quiet needs inside you tonight, needs that cannot yet be spoken, needs that sit beneath the surface, needs the world cannot see, needs only God can tend. You do not have to hide them. You do not have to solve them. You do not have to rise above them. You only need to breathe, wait, and lean softly toward the one who hears the cry from the depths. Let your breath deepen, warm and slow. Let the body settle further into rest. Let your heart open gently to its own honest need. God meets you here, not above the depths, but within them, with mercy, with patience, with tender compassion that lifts the soul slowly, carefully, faithfully. The night is still dark, but the heart is beginning to glow. The night settles into a deeper kind of quiet, not empty, not hollow, but full of something warm and unseen, as though the darkness itself is beginning to breathe, slowly, softly, carrying a promise it has held for far too long. Inside the small dwelling, the solitary figure remains by the window, their posture still, their hands resting open, their breath gentle and steady, and there, deep within their chest, a soft stirring begins, like light forming beneath heavy water, not brightness yet, not joy, but the first hint of something rising, hope, mercy, gentle lifting from the inside out. The psalm leans into this moment, this quiet awakening, this hidden shift beneath the night. With the Lord, there is unfailing love, and with Him, full redemption. The words settle over the figure like a warm blanket, wrapping around the deepest part of the soul, filling the low places with steady assurance, unfailing love, steadfast presence, mercy too deep to measure, strength gentle enough to hold sorrow without breaking it. The figure inhales slowly, and the breath feels different, lighter, as though something inside has loosened gently, letting light slip into cracks unseen. Their exhale comes long and warm, a release that feels like relief, like soft surrender, like the heart whispering, "I am not alone in this depth." Outside, the valley holds its darkness, but the darkness is changing, its edges thinning, its weight lifting, as though a quiet brightness is gathering beneath the earth. The hills appear less sharp, less heavy, their silhouettes softening into the shape of coming morning, even though dawn is not yet visible. The figure notices the change, not with their eyes, but with their spirit, that deep, intuitive knowing that light always begins in hidden places, beneath the soil, beneath the surface, beneath the ribs, long before it appears in the sky. They place a hand over their heart, feeling the steady rhythm beneath their palm, and beneath that rhythm, something else, a warmth, a quiet rising. It feels like hope, but gentler, something deeper than hope. It feels like mercy becoming light, forming where shadows once lived, pushing upward, softly, faithfully, toward the dawn. The oil lamp burns lower now, its flame small, steady, its glow tracing warm lines across the figure's face, revealing the softened expression of someone who has felt seen, heard, held, even in the depths. Shadows sway gently along the walls, no longer sharp, but blurry and kind, as though the night itself is shifting from sorrow to promise. A distant rustling moves across the valley floor, a soft sweep of wind touching the long grass, moving without urgency, as though carrying a secret of light soon to come. The figure leans a little closer to the window, letting the cool air brush their cheeks, and in that gentle touch, the heart feels it again, the rising, the lifting, the quiet promise of dawn forming beneath the dark. Even without seeing it, the soul senses the truth, that mercy has begun to move, that redemption is not only possible, but already on its way. The story leans softly toward the listening heart. There may be deep places within you tonight, places where sorrow once settled heavily, where regret or worry formed quiet shadows, where the heart sunk beneath its own weight. But hear the gentle truth of this part of the psalm. Light begins before it is seen. Hope rises before it is understood. Mercy moves before the darkness lifts. Even now, in the quiet of this breath, something tender may be rising inside you, a warmth, a loosening, a soft shift beneath the surface. Let your breath deepen, warm and steady. Let your shoulders relax into the bed. Let your chest soften as light begins its unseen ascent. You're not forgotten in the depths. You're not left in the dark. The Lord brings light to even the lowest places, and that light has already begun to rise. The night rests over the valley like a soft, dark ocean, deep, steady, unmoving on the surface, yet carrying slow, gentle currents beneath. Currents that lift, currents that shift, currents that quietly bring a soul upward long before dawn touches the world. Inside the small dwelling, the solitary figure remains by the window, their breathing warm and even, their shoulders low, their hands resting softly upon their knees, their heart no longer weighed down at the bottom of its depths, but held in a quiet place between sorrow and rising, between darkness and the first breath of morning. The change is almost imperceptible, a subtle release, a softening, a slight lightness beneath the ribs, but it is real as the tide beginning to turn beneath the surface of deep water. The psalm leans into this tender moment, when the soul feels the first gentle lifting, long before the dawn arrives. My soul waits for the Lord, more than watchmen wait for the morning. The figure repeats this silently, letting the words move through them like warm water, washing over the hidden places, smoothing out the tightness along the chest, loosening the corners of the heart that once held fear. They inhale, and the breath does not tremble this time. It fills the lungs like soft light entering a darkened room. They exhale, and the sound is quieter, longer, almost peaceful. The kind of breath that follows an unseen hand lifting just enough weight to let rest settle deeper. Outside, the valley responds with its own small movements. A breeze stirs along the lowest part of the land, gentle, slow, moving through the grass like fingers brushing through soft threads. The grass sways faintly, not in agitation, but in quiet relief, as though creation itself senses that mercy is approaching, that something tender is rising toward the surface. The hills remain dark silhouettes, but the darkness around them looks different now. Its edges thinning, its weight lifting, its texture softening. It is the look of night just before it begins to loosen, the look of darkness preparing to breathe out its last long sigh, the look of a valley waiting for light it cannot yet see, but knows, deeply, surely, is coming. The figure rests their hand gently against the window frame, their fingertips cool against the wood, their palm open and relaxed. They lean slightly toward the open air, feeling the night breeze brush their cheek, and the heart inside responds with a warm, quiet stirring. Not joy yet, not celebration, but possibility. The first tender lifting from the depths, soft but steady, subtle but sure. It feels like the soul is rising slowly through deep water, toward a light it cannot see, but senses, feels, longs for. Mercy is doing its hidden work, in silence, in breath, in stillness, in the delicate spaces between each heartbeat. The oil lamp's glow flickers gently along the walls, casting soft patterns of amber across the room. The shadows no longer sharp or heavy, but light, wavering, gentle, like memories passing through soft light. The figure closes their eyes, and behind their eyelids, the darkness feels warmer, softer, as though lit from within by something unseen, something slowly rising, something preparing to lift them into a new place of peace. Their breath deepens again, slow and warm, filling the quiet with its rhythm. Their shoulders fall even more, their spine sinks deeper into rest, their hands loosen completely. This is the tender lifting the psalm speaks of, not the sudden rise of dawn, but the slow ascent of a heart being carried upward by mercy, gently, patiently, faithfully. The story leans close now to the listening heart. There may be places inside tonight that feel like depths, places where breath has been heavy, where hope sank quietly, where prayer felt small, where silence felt long. But even now, something may be lifting inside you, a quiet warmth, a gentle ease, a soft shift in your chest, the first threads of light forming beneath your inner night. You do not need to see it fully, you only need to feel it, as softly as breath, as quietly as rest. Let your breath deepen, warm and slow. Let the body grow heavier into the comfort of the bed. Let your soul rise just a little with each inhale, lifted not by your own strength, but by the one who reaches into depths and carries his children upward. You are rising, even if only slightly, even if only quietly, even if only within. Mercy is lifting you, light is preparing its path, and dawn is nearer than it seems. The night settles into a kind of stillness that feels almost luminous, a darkness no longer thick with heaviness, but softened, thinned, warmed from within by something tender moving beneath the surface, as though the valley itself is beginning to glow quietly in the unseen places. Inside the small dwelling, the solitary figure remains by the window, their posture calm, their breath steady, their hands resting open like small bowls ready to receive what God is gently pouring into the soul. The depths inside them have not vanished, but they are no longer cold, no longer suffocating, no longer a place of sinking. Something warm has entered those depths, something steady, something strong enough to anchor the heart even when it feels low. This is the place where the Psalms promise deepens, where the soul discovers not only hope, but the steadfast love of the Lord. With him is unfailing love, and with him is full redemption. These words settle over the figure like warm rain falling through the darkness, soft, steady, unstoppable, entering every low place, filling every quiet ache, washing gently across the heart that has cried from its depths. They inhale, and the breath feels like light entering a hidden cavern, touching walls that once felt cold, warming chambers that once felt unreachable. They exhale, and the release feels like gratitude, not loud, not spoken, but deep, a gratitude shaped by the quiet realization that God's love is not fragile, not conditional, not distant. It is steadfast, unfailing, eternal, strong enough to reach them even here, in the depths, in the waiting, in the silence. Outside the window, the valley holds its darkness, but the darkness is different now, softened at the edges, golden at the seams, as though dawn has begun to breathe beneath the horizon, sending gentle pulses of warmth upward through the soil. The hills appear almost blue now, not black, not shapeless, but gently outlined in a faint, quiet glow, the sign of a morning that has begun its journey long before it can be seen. The solitary figure leans forward slightly, their fingers brushing the cool wood of the window frame, and in that touch, their heart senses it, the Lord is near. Not because circumstances have changed, but because they have felt the shift inside, A soft lifting, a quiet warmth, a gentle turning of the soul toward light. A small breeze slides through the open window, touching the figure's face with cool tenderness, and they close their eyes, letting the breeze move across them like a quiet blessing. It feels like compassion. The kind that does not remove the night instantly, but stays with the soul through every hour of it, breathing comfort, breathing nearness. The oil lamp burns low, its flame now steady and small, casting soft, rounded shadows along the walls. The kind of shadows that feel like movement toward morning, not away from it. The figure lifts a hand to their chest, fingers resting lightly over their heart, and beneath the warmth of their palm, the heartbeat feels stronger. Not loud, not fast, but steady, as though strengthened by the presence of unfailing love. They breathe deeply again, filling their lungs with air that feels cleaner, lighter, as though something has been washed from within. Unfailing love does this, entering slowly, warming the coldest corners, lifting the heaviest stones, turning the deepest depths into places where God Himself sits beside the soul. The story leans gently toward the listening heart. There may be places inside you that feel deep tonight, places where love seemed far, where hope felt thin, where the night lingered too long. But hear this quiet truth: God's love does not falter when you sink. It does not weaken when you grow tired. It does not leave when your prayer becomes a whisper. His unfailing love enters the depths, filling them, healing them, lifting you from within, even now, in the warmth gathering behind your breath, in the softening in your shoulders, in the gentle light forming quietly inside your chest. Feel that love. Rest in it. Let it wrap around every low place. Let it hold what you no longer can. Let your breath deepen, soft, warm, steady, and let yourself lean into the truth that God's steadfast love is already lifting you, already restoring you, already preparing the dawn. The night holds its breath in a soft, reverent hush, a hush filled not with emptiness, but with quiet movement, with gentle warmth, with the subtle shifting of something sacred taking place beneath the surface of all things. Inside the small dwelling, the solitary figure remains near the window, their posture softened into deep rest, their breath slow and smooth, their hands resting open in their lap, as though their very body has surrendered to the presence that now fills the room. What once felt like an overwhelming depth has become a quiet space of meeting, a place where God's compassion has entered silently, slowly, faithfully, turning the lowest places into the soil where hope begins to grow again. The psalm leans into this tender transformation. With the Lord is unfailing love, and with Him is full redemption. Full redemption, not partial, not hesitant, not delayed, but full, complete, deep enough to reach the depths the heart once feared it would drown in. The figure closes their eyes, and in the darkness behind their eyelids, something glows, a warmth, a softness, a quiet light that has not yet reached the surface, but has undeniably begun to bloom within. Their inhale is gentle, their exhale long and warm, each breath brushing the edges of their inner depths, softening them, filling them, transforming them from within. Outside the window, the valley rests under the same quiet transformation, the darkness no longer thick, its edges gently lifting, like a veil beginning to thin, like the earliest whisper of dawn passing softly through the land. The hills seem to breathe with the figure, their silhouettes rising and falling in the faint shimmer of pre-dawn air, their shadows warming slightly, as though touched by a light not yet visible but already present. A soft rustle moves through the grass at the base of the hill, not loud, not sudden, but tender, the sound of creation shifting toward hope, toward renewal, toward the first hints of morning waiting just beyond the horizon. The figure senses the shift, not through sight, but from within. The way the heart feels when something heavy begins to lift. The way the soul responds when mercy has seeped into places once sealed by sorrow. This is redemption unfolding slowly, like dawn rising beneath the earth before. It touches the sky, like a deep breath taken after long silence, like the soft reopening of a place inside that had closed to protect itself. The oil lamp burns low, its flame small yet steady, casting golden ripples across the walls, its light no longer fighting back the darkness, but joining the quiet glow already forming inside the room. Shadows sway gently, not as reminders of fear, but as signs of movement, of life, of change, of healing beginning to take shape in the unseen places. The figure lifts a hand slowly to rest over their heart, their fingers warm against their chest. And beneath that touch, the heartbeat feels different now, slower, steadier, stronger, as though something once burdened has been eased, as though the soul has been lifted a small distance toward morning. They inhale again, and the breath flows easily, expanding the chest with quiet peace. The kind of peace born from knowing they are not abandoned in their depths, that God's love has reached them and is redeeming them, gently, thoroughly, in ways they cannot yet see but can already feel. Outside, the valley shifts once more. The darkness thins by another shade. The air warms by another breath. The subtle glow beneath the horizon brightens just slightly. Creation knows what the heart is only beginning to understand. Redemption is underway, and dawn is closer than it seems. The story leans now toward the listening heart. There may be places inside that still feel tender, still feel low, still feel like quiet depths not yet fully lifted. But hear the gentle truth carried in this part of the psalm. Redemption begins before it is visible. It starts in silence, in breath, in warmth rising beneath the ribs, in the soft unwinding of old weight, in the gentle easing of the inner night. You may not see the light yet, but you can feel it, soft, slow, moving inside you like a quiet river. Let your breath deepen. Let your shoulders melt further into the bed. Let your heart soften into the warmth gathering behind each inhale. God is redeeming the deep places, slowly, tenderly, thoroughly, and the dawn, your dawn, is closer than you can yet see. The night holds steady over the valley, a soft, velvety darkness that no longer presses downward, but feels as though it is being gently lifted from within, like a curtain slowly rising, like the quiet breath before dawn stretches its first pale light across sleeping earth. Inside the small dwelling, the solitary figure remains near the window, their posture calm, their hands resting open, their breath deep and unhurried. The heaviness that once sat in their chest now softened, eased, held, as though wrapped in hands far kinder than their own. They are still in the depth, but the depth has changed, no longer a place of sinking, but a place of steady holding, a place where mercy has descended like warm water, filling low places, lifting gently from beneath. The psalm leans into this moment with tender clarity. With him is unfailing love, and with him is full redemption, not partial redemption, not momentary relief, but fullness, completeness, mercy that does not stop halfway, love that does not falter in the dark, a God who does not pull the soul up with force, but lifts it slowly, carefully, like one raising a fragile vessel from deep water without letting it crack. The figure breathes in, warm, slow, peaceful, and the breath fills the space beneath their ribs with soft light. A quiet glow rising like embers under a blanket of ash. They exhale, and the sound is almost a sigh of release. The kind of release that comes not from understanding, but from trusting, from knowing that the one who hears from the depths now holds them in unfailing love. Outside the window, the valley looks different, still dark, but touched by the faintest silver sheen, a whisper of something rising beyond the horizon, not yet light, but the soft echo of coming morning. The hills breathe slowly, their shadows thinner, their outlines clearer, as though they too are being lifted, as though the night itself is preparing to release its final hold. A gentle breeze stirs through the low fields, rustling the tall grass in a slow ripple, carrying the scent of cool earth and distant water, the kind of breeze that moves like a soft voice whispering comfort to everything it touches. It slips through the open window, brushes the figure's face, and settles like a warm presence around their shoulders. The figure lifts their hand to their chest once more, fingertips resting lightly over their heartbeat, and the rhythm beneath their palm feels strong, steady, alive, not because all has been resolved, but because something deep inside has been anchored to mercy, to steadfast love, to a God who does not abandon the soul in its depths. The oil lamp burns low, its flame now a gentle curl of gold, steady and warm, mirroring the glow forming quietly inside the heart. Shadows shift softly along the walls, round edges, slow movement, like light trying to emerge from behind them, like morning preparing its first quiet breath. The valley itself seems to sigh, a soft, almost imperceptible sound, as though the earth is releasing its own long-held breath. The figure senses it, the turning, the lifting, the gentle rising from the depths, not fast, not sudden, but steady, like dawn climbing slowly through layers of shadow. Redemption is not loud, redemption is not rushed, redemption is gentle, like breath returning, like weight lifting grain by grain, like the first touch of warmth on a cold morning. The story leans now toward the listening heart. Perhaps there are places inside you that still feel low, still feel tender, still feel unsure, still feel caught between night and morning. But hear this quiet truth. God does not start lifting you only when dawn appears. He begins much earlier, in the depth, in the stillness, in the breath that trembles, in the waiting that feels long. Redemption begins within you before it appears around you. It begins as warmth, as softness, as breath, as the faint glow rising beneath fear. Let your breath deepen once more, warm, slow, full. Let your shoulders melt further into the bed. Let your thoughts quiet into gentle drifting. You're not sinking. You're being lifted, slowly, faithfully, tenderly, by the God whose love never fails, and whose redemption reaches deeper than any depth you've ever known. The night is thinning, your heart is rising, and dawn is on its way. The night has entered its softest hour, that tender stretch of time when darkness loosens its grip, when silence deepens into something warm and protective, and the world seems to rest in the hollow of God's hand, held gently, quietly, without hurry. Inside the small dwelling, the solitary figure remains by the open window, their posture now fully relaxed, their breath steady and deep, their hands resting open upon their knees as though the soul itself has exhaled, released, and opened like a flower in the safety of warmth. The depth within them has changed, not erased, but transformed, no longer a place of drowning, but a place of meeting, a place where mercy has sat beside them, has breathed with them, has whispered comfort into the silent chambers of the heart. The psalm leans into this moment with its gentle promise. My soul waits for the Lord, more than watchmen wait for the morning. This waiting is no longer tense or fearful. It is restful, trust-filled, like leaning against a strong shoulder, like settling into warmth after a long cold night. The figure inhales slowly, and the breath is calm and full, a breath shaped not by desperation, but by trust. They exhale, long and quiet, a soft sigh that drifts into the room like a final release of old weight, the kind that empties the chest of lingering heaviness, leaving only rest behind. Outside the window, the valley has shifted again, the darkness thinning by another shade, the horizon softening into a deep blue-gray, the color of night yielding to the earliest hint of dawn's whisper. The hills stand in gentle outlines, no longer swallowed by shadow, but touched by a faint glow rising beneath them, a glow not yet light, but something like the memory of light, the promise of it, the certainty that dawn is preparing to climb. A quiet breeze drifts across the valley floor, slow and cool, carrying the scent of moist earth, of resting grass, of distant water moving beneath stones. The breeze slips gently through the window, touching the figure's face, wrapping lightly around their shoulders like a shawl woven of night air. They close their eyes, welcoming the breeze, letting it pass through them like a soft blessing, letting it steady the heart even further. The oil lamp nearby has burned low, its flame now a single soft bead of gold, resting at the tip of the wick, barely flickering, but warm, anchoring the last remnant of shadow with a gentleness that mirrors the heart within. The figure brings their hands together loosely, fingers touching lightly, resting against their lap, not in tension, but in peace. They breathe again, deep, slow, the kind of breath that feels like settling deeply into God's presence, like sinking into a bed of soft earth, like being held against a warm chest. The depths inside are quiet now, still, not empty, but full of something tender, full of God's presence, full of quiet mercy that has flowed gently into every low place. This is the beginning of rest, the sacred rest that comes when the soul has cried deeply, been heard fully, and is now being held with unfailing love. Outside, the valley seems to breathe with the figure, inhaling in the rustle of distant leaves, exhaling in the hush along the hills. The whole landscape held in a tranquil rhythm, waiting for dawn, but without fear, without urgency, without strain. The dawn will come, and everything knows it. The hills, the grass, the stones, the heart. The story leans gently toward the listening heart. Perhaps tonight, a quiet rest is beginning to rise within you too. Not dramatic, not bright, but soft, warm, deep, the kind of rest that comes not from solving everything, but from knowing you are held, known, heard, cherished. Let your breath slow. Let your shoulders melt deeper into your bed. Let your hands rest loosely. You do not need to rise from the depths on your own. God is lifting you, breath by breath, moment by moment. Trust the softness returning to your chest. Trust the warmth beneath your ribs. Trust the stillness settling into your bones. This is the rest promised in the psalm, and it is beginning within you now, like dawn preparing quietly behind the horizon. The night is reaching its gentlest turning, that quiet moment when darkness thins into soft blue, when the world holds its breath, waiting, resting, receiving the first touch of morning long before light appears. Inside the small dwelling, the solitary figure remains by the window, their posture loose and serene, their breath slow and full, their hands resting gently in their lap, their heart no longer weighted, but warmed, cradled, lifted from its depths by a presence that has sat with them through the long night. The air in the room feels different now, lighter, softer, as though the very atmosphere has been washed clean, like the inside of the soul has been cleared of its heaviness, making space for something new, something tender, something bright. The psalm carries its promise into this quiet hour, the hour when hope moves from whisper to warmth. With the Lord is unfailing love, and with him is full redemption. These words return again like a soft echo, not merely heard now, but felt, settling deeper into the soul, blending with breath, becoming part of the inner rhythm that continues even in sleep. The figure inhales, and the breath fills the chest with a slow, expanding warmth, the kind that rises like a soft flame, warm enough to comfort, gentle enough to soothe, steady enough to remain. They exhale, and the release carries a deep, quiet peace, the kind that settles into the bones, that smooths the heart from inside, that melts the edges of worry. A promise has entered them, and it is glowing, slowly, beautifully, like embers beneath the first touch of morning air. Outside the window, the valley begins to change, the darkness softening into charcoal blue, the sky lifting ever so slightly from black to deep indigo, a subtle shift that marks the approach of dawn, not sunrise yet, but its nearness, its certainty, its breath. The hills, once swallowed in shadow, now carry a faint outline, a soft curve illuminated not by light, but by the promise of it, as though morning is brushing their edges with invisible fingers, tracing the contours of creation, preparing everything for gentle illumination. A breeze drifts across the valley floor, cool, fresh, carrying a whisper of coming day, the scent of dew forming, the feel of air beginning to rise. It slips through the open window, touching the figure's face, running lightly across their hands, curling around their shoulders like a soft garment placed upon them by unseen hands. They close their eyes, receiving it, their breath syncing with the rhythm of the breeze, in and out, slow, warm, steady. This is the warmth of divine joy, not loud or overwhelming, but soft, like the first ray of sun warming cool stone, like the gentle brightening of the horizon, like the tender glow that rises from within before the world ever sees it. The oil lamp emits one more soft flicker, a quiet pulse of gold, before settling into a steady glow, its flame small but unwavering, mirroring the calm heartbeat within the figure's chest. Shadows along the walls stretch thinner, their edges softer, their shapes less pronounced, as though they too are waiting for morning, peaceful, unthreatening. The figure brings a hand to their heart again, but this time the touch is different, not searching, not steadying, but grateful, a quiet gesture of thanks, a tender acknowledgement of the warmth rising within. Their heart feels held, not by their own efforts, but by the one who descended into their depths, stayed through the night, and is now lifting them gently toward morning. The story leans tenderly toward the listening heart. Perhaps tonight there is a gentle warmth rising within you too, a small glow beneath the ribs, a softening of edges, a loosening of heaviness, a sense that dawn is nearing even if your eyes cannot yet see it. This is the warmth of divine joy, the kind that begins quietly, the kind that enters like breath, the kind that grows like light beneath the horizon. Let your breath deepen. Let your shoulders relax into the softness of your bed. Let your thoughts drift gently like clouds in early morning sky. You're being warmed from within. You're being lifted toward light. You're being held in unfailing love. Dawn is approaching, slowly, surely, and the warmth you feel is the first touch of its gentle joy. The night has reached its quietest unfolding, that sacred threshold where darkness is no longer darkness, but a thin, gentle veil, softening, lifting, giving way to the first breath of dawn hidden just beyond sight. Inside the small dwelling, the solitary figure remains near the window, their body at rest, their breath slow and full, their hands resting open in their lap, their heart warm and steady, held in a peace so deep it feels like a soft current moving through every corner of the soul. The depths that once weighed heavily inside them now feel distant, not gone, but transformed, softened by mercy, filled by love, lifted by the quiet work of the one who hears every whispered cry. They rest now in a stillness so deep, so gentle, it feels like being carried in arms steadier than mountains, in hands calmer than morning wind, in a presence that has not left them for a single heartbeat. The Psalm's hope enters this moment with tender clarity, as dawn approaches, as shadows thin, as silence deepens into peace. My soul waits for the Lord, more than watchmen wait for the morning. This waiting no longer aches, no longer trembles, it rests, breathes, settles into a quiet trust that has become part of the body itself. The figure inhales, and the breath feels like calm water rising gently within, cool, warm, steady, a tide of peace brushing softly against the inner shores. They exhale, and the release is long and slow, like the final letting go of the night's last remnants of weight, a release so deep it seems to drift through the room, settling into the walls, the air, the floor, outside. The window, the valley shifts toward dawn, the darkness now a pale, velvety blue, light unseen, but undeniably present, spreading through the horizon like breath, touching the hills with its first delicate whisper. The hills lift gently from shadow, their shapes beginning to soften, their outlines rounding with the earliest hint of morning's glow, not bright, but tender, the kind of light that enters slowly, the kind of light the heart can rest inside without needing to shield itself. A breeze moves through the valley, slow and quiet, carrying the coolness of night's last breath and the warmth of day's first. A meeting of two worlds in a single gentle wind. It slips through the open window, brushing across the figure's cheek, curling softly around their shoulders, lifting a strand of hair, and settling over them like a warm, invisible blanket. They close their eyes, letting the breeze move through them, letting it press lightly against their heart, letting it fill the inner space with the scent of dew, the calm of the valley, the quiet promise of morning. The oil lamp now burns at its smallest glow, its light fragile but unwavering, mirroring the last touch of night, a companion that has stayed faithfully through every hour of the soul's quiet rising. Shadows in the room have softened into gentle swirls, their edges blurred, their forms stretched thin, as though preparing to dissolve into the growing warmth. The figure rests one hand over their chest, fingers warm against the steady, peaceful rhythm beneath, the heartbeat of someone no longer sinking, but being held, being lifted, being led toward dawn with tenderness beyond understanding. This is the descent into stillness, not the descent of sinking, but the descent into peace, into rest, into the deep quiet that comes when the soul knows it is safe, seen, cherished, and no longer alone in its depths. Outside, the valley lies in its most sacred silence, a silence filled with promise, a silence that precedes light, a silence that comforts without a single word. The story leans now toward the listening heart. This stillness is for you too. The softness, the warmth, the quiet lifting, the gentle settling, the deep, tender peace that enters when the night has done its work, and dawn is just beginning to gather at the edges of your soul. You may feel your breath slowing, your shoulders loosening, your thoughts drifting like clouds across early morning sky, your body growing heavier with calm. Let it happen. Let yourself sink into the safety of this stillness, not the stillness of emptiness, but the stillness of being held, of being watched over, of being carried toward morning by the one who never leaves. Your depths are no longer heavy, your night is no longer cold, your heart is no longer alone. Let your breath deepen one more time, warm, soft, slow, and rest in the peace that now fills the space inside you. Dawn is almost here. The night has reached its final quiet moments, that sacred breath before dawn when the darkness is no longer darkness, but a soft, shimmering veil, thin as mist, gentle as breath, ready to lift at the slightest touch of morning's first light. Inside the small dwelling, the solitary figure remains near the window, their posture fully at ease, their hands resting open in their lap, their breath slow and smooth, their heart warm and steady, no longer weighed by depths, but carried by the quiet presence that has stayed with them through every moment of the night. The room feels lighter now, as though peace itself has filled every corner, every shadow, every still inch of air. The depths inside the figure have softened into something tender, something warm, something held and healed by the unseen arms of mercy, arms that never left, arms that lifted, arms that now cradle the heart as dawn approaches. They inhale gently, and the breath enters the chest like early light entering a quiet valley. Soft, warm, full of promise. They exhale, and the release is long, steady. The kind of breath that comes only when the heart has finally found ease, found rest, found the gentle truth that it is no longer alone. Outside the window, the valley prepares for morning. The darkness now a soft blue shimmer, the hills outlined in faint silver, their shapes clear enough to feel, but still wrapped in pre-dawn tenderness. Everything is waiting. But this waiting is not heavy. It is hopeful, expectant. Like creation knows something beautiful is moments away. Like every blade of grass is leaning quietly toward the horizon, listening for light. A breeze moves across the valley, gentle and warm, carrying with it the scent of dew. Beginning to form, the soft pulse of earth preparing to awaken, the faint hum of creatures beginning to shift in their nests. It slips through the open window, brushing across the figure's face, moving along their shoulders, curling around their hands like a quiet touch of reassurance, a whisper that dawn is truly near. The oil lamp burns at its smallest flame, a single bead of soft gold, its glow delicate, yet steady, as though honoring the night's final moments, before morning takes the room into its gentle brightness. Shadows along the walls have nearly dissolved, their edges thin and pale, fading into a blue-tinted faintness that drifts like memory, like a dream slowly releasing its hold as waking nears. The solitary figure rests one hand over their heart, feeling the calm rhythm beneath their palm, a rhythm that speaks of peace, of healing, of being held in unfailing love. Their depth has transformed into a sanctuary, a place where God met them, stayed with them, lifted them, and now leads them gently toward morning. They inhale again, and the breath feels light, full, like the first moment a heart realizes joy is returning. Quietly, slowly, deeply, they exhale, and a soft smile forms, small, gentle, born not of sudden happiness, but of deep peace. The kind of peace that arrives after a long night of honesty, of waiting, of being held. Outside, the darkness shifts once more, its blue deepening, its edges warming, its quiet filling with the earliest echoes of birds beginning to stir. Soft chirps, small rustles, life awakening in tender notes. The valley holds it all, the last breath of night, the first breath of day, and somewhere between them, a quiet laughter rises within the heart, not loud, not bright, but gentle, soft. The kind of laughter that comes when something inside has healed, when burdens have loosened, when mercy has done its patient work. The story leans now toward the listening heart. Perhaps something inside you is rising too, a soft warmth, a quiet glow, a tender lifting that feels like the first small smile after a long, heavy night. The laughter of the heart does not need to be loud, or certain, or strong. It only needs to be real, soft, quiet, the gentle overflowing of a soul that knows it is safe, held, restored. Let your breath deepen once more, warm, slow, steady. Let your shoulders settle into the softness beneath you. Let your thoughts drift like early morning mist. Your night is not your prison. It is the place where God stayed with you, and where your dawn has begun. Feel the quiet laughter rising within, the peace in your chest, the softness in your breath. Morning is almost here. The last veil of night rests over the valley, thin, soft, luminous, a curtain of deep blue gently giving way to the quiet breath of morning. The darkness now more light than shadow, more promise than depth, more blessing than burden. Inside the small dwelling, the solitary figure sits peacefully by the window, their posture loose and restful, their breath deep and slow, their hands relaxed in their lap, their heart warm, steady, healed. The depths that once felt so heavy have become a quiet memory, not forgotten, but transformed, redeemed, woven into the soul like a gentle thread that now glows instead of aches. A night that began in pleading now ends in peace. A peace so deep it feels like gentle light settling inside the body, filling chest, arms, shoulders, spine. A soft glow that feels like being held in the palm of God. The psalm completes its promise, its final movement rising like dawn itself. He will redeem his people from all their iniquities. This truth settles over the figure like the first warm beam of morning, soft, steady, a warmth that reaches every inner corner, every quiet room of the heart. Redemption is here, not loud, not sudden, but present, complete, gentle, like a hand lifting the final weight, like a whisper saying, "You are safe now." They inhale, and the breath feels bright, like morning filling their lungs, cool, warm, alive, full of quiet promise. They exhale, and the release is almost luminous, a soft letting go of everything the night once held, a final surrender into peace. Outside, the valley glows with the first breath of day, the horizon carrying a faint line of pale gold, the hills touched with early light, their shadows thinning, their outlines warming. Birdsong begins, faint at first, then layered, gentle notes rising from the trees, like morning's own prayer drifting across the land. A breeze lifts through the valley, soft and warm, carrying the scent of newness, of awakening soil, of dew forming on tender grass. It reaches the window, slips through, brushes the figure's cheek, threads its way through their hair, and wraps around them like a tender embrace, the kind that reassures, the kind that blesses, the kind that whispers, "You have been carried through the night." The oil lamp's flame flickers once, twice, and gently goes out, not extinguished, but released, at peace, its work done. The room fills with early morning light, soft as silk, gentle as warm breath, touching the walls, touching the floor, touching the figure's face with a glow that makes them look almost radiant. They lift a hand to their heart, and the heartbeat beneath their palm feels whole, calm, steady, a heart that has been held, heard, lifted, redeemed, and is now at rest. Their eyes soften as they look toward the horizon, not with longing, not with weariness, but with peace, deep and quiet, rooted and warm. The valley is fully awake now, light moving tenderly across the ground, shadows retreating into gentle gold, everything touched with the beauty of a world made new, not by force, but by dawn's soft hand. The figure inhales the morning, and the breath feels like a promise kept, like a prayer answered, like love made visible in the quiet glow of day. Their night has been transformed, their depths redeemed, their heart restored, their spirit lifted into calm. Out of the depths, a cry was heard, a soul was held, and joy, quiet, steady joy, has taken its place in the gentle light of morning. The story leans now toward the listening heart. You have walked through this night, this psalm, this quiet journey from depth to dawn, and now, let the peace settle inside you. Let your breath soften into rest. Let your body grow heavy with safety. You are held. You are heard. You are lifted. You are loved with unfailing love. Let your eyes drift closed. Let your thoughts dissolve into softness. Let the warmth of divine peace cradle you gently. May your night end gently, and your rest be deep, and your heart be wrapped in the quiet light of God's mercy. Thank you for resting in this story tonight. Sleep peacefully, sleep fully, sleep in the tender nearness of the one who brings light to every depth.